You are your own worst enemy, and you do not even know it. Every single day, you wake up and immediately begin destroying your own chances of success with the words you speak to yourself. You sabotage your dreams before breakfast, defeat yourself before you even try, and program your mind for failure while thinking you are being realistic. The voice in your head is not telling you the truth about what is possible for your life. It is repeating lies that were planted there by people who never achieved what you are trying to achieve. You have been brainwashed into accepting limitations that do not belong to you. And until you recognize this mental terrorism you are committing against yourself, you will never break free from the prison you have built in your own mind. The most important conversation you will ever have is not with your boss, your spouse, or even your maker. The most important conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself every single day, every single hour, every single minute, right now, as you sit there. There is a voice speaking inside your head. That voice is either programming you for greatness or programming you for mediocrity. That voice is either lifting you up or tearing you down. That voice is either your greatest ally in the pursuit of your destiny or your most dangerous enemy standing between you and your breakthrough. And so I said, okay, most people never realize they're having this conversation. They wake up in the morning and before their feet hit the floor, their mind is already telling them what they cannot do, what they do not have, what is wrong with their life, why today will be just like yesterday. They are defeated before breakfast. They are finished before they start. They wonder why their life never changes, why their circumstances never improve, why they feel stuck in the same patterns year after year. They do not understand that the problem is not outside of them. The problem is the conversation happening inside of them. So unbelieve me that, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but if you seek to DCs, you see, winners do not just think differently than losers. Winners talk to themselves differently than losers. Winners have learned to control the conversation in their head. They have learned to speak to themselves like champions before they become champions. They have learned to program their mind for victory before victory shows up in their circumstances. This is not positive thinking. This is winners programming. There was a young man named Carlos who understood this principle better than most. Carlos grew up in poverty, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. When Carlos was 15, he made the high school basketball team, but he spent most of his time on the bench. The coach told him he was too small, too slow, not athletic enough to be a starter. Every practice, Carlos would sit on that bench and watch the other players get the opportunities he dreamed of having. But Carlos understood something most people never learn. He understood that champions are not made on the court. Champions are made in the mind. Every day before practice, Carlos would sit in his car and have a conversation with himself. But it was not the conversation most people have. Most people would sit in that car and say things like, I'm not good enough. I'll never be a starter. The coach doesn't believe in me. Maybe I should just quit. But Carlos programmed himself differently. Carlos would look at himself in the rearview mirror and say, I am getting better every day. I am faster today than I was yesterday. I'm stronger today than I was last week. My time is coming. When opportunity shows up, I will be ready. I belong on this team. I belong in the starting lineup. I am not a bench player. I am a champion waiting for my moment. Every single day for 2 years, Carlos had this conversation with himself. By his senior year, Carlos had grown 3 inches and added 20 pounds of muscle. His speed had improved. His skills had developed. But more importantly, his mind had been programmed for success. When the starting point guard got injured halfway through the season, Carlos was ready. Not just physically ready, but mentally ready. He had been talking to himself like a starter for 2 years. When the opportunity came, his mind was already programmed for that position. Carlos finished the season as the team's leading scorer and earned a full scholarship to college. The same coaches who had told him he was not good enough were now calling him one of the best players they had ever coached. What changed? Carlos learned to talk to himself like a winner. Your mind is like a computer. Every thought you think, every word you speak to yourself is programming that computer. If you program it with failure thoughts, it will produce failure results. If you program it with victim thoughts, it will produce victim results. If you program it with limitation thoughts, it will produce limited results. But if you program it with winner thoughts, it will produce winner results. The tragedy is that most people are programming themselves for defeat without even realizing it. They wake up and immediately start the negative programming. I'm so tired. I don't want to go to work. I hate my job. I can't afford this. I'll never get ahead. Nothing ever works out for me. They spend their entire day reinforcing these negative programs. And then they wonder why their life reflects exactly what they've been programming into their mind. But winners understand that you cannot speak defeat and expect victory. You cannot program yourself for failure and expect success. You cannot talk to yourself like a loser and live like a winner. The conversation you have with yourself determines the life you live. Change the conversation, and you change your life. This is not theory, this is principle. This is how your mind works. The next 7 days are going to change everything for you if you are willing to take control of the most important conversation in your life. You are going to learn to talk to yourself like a winner. And when you do, winning will become your natural result. But before we can reprogram your mind for success, you must understand how you got programmed for failure in the first place. You were not born talking to yourself negatively. You were not born with limiting thoughts. You learned these patterns. Someone taught you to speak to yourself this way. And most of the time, it was not intentional. It was passed down from generation to generation like a family inheritance nobody wanted. When you were a child, you heard the adults around you talking. You heard your parents, your teachers, your relatives having conversations with themselves and about themselves. You heard them say things like, "We can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. Life is hard. You have to work twice as hard to get half as much. Don't get your hopes up. Be realistic." That's not for people like us. These were not just casual comments. These were programming statements going directly into your young, impressionable mind. Your subconscious mind does not judge whether information is good or bad, true or false, helpful or harmful. It simply accepts and stores everything it hears, especially during your formative years. So you learn to talk to yourself the same way the adults around you talk to themselves. You inherited their mental programming, their limitations, their fears, their doubts. You learn to put the same ceiling on your life that they had put on theirs. Let me tell you about Victoria, a brilliant woman who came to understand this principle in a powerful way. Victoria was the first person in her family to graduate from college. She had started her own marketing business and was doing well. But she noticed something disturbing. Every time she was on the verge of a major breakthrough, she would sabotage herself. When big contracts came her way, she would underbid and undervalue her services. When opportunities for expansion presented themselves, she would find reasons why it would not work. When people praised her work, she would immediately point out what was wrong with it. Victoria could not understand why she kept stopping herself from succeeding until she spent a weekend at her grandmother's house. As she listened to her grandmother talk, she realized she was hearing the exact same internal dialogue she had been having with herself. Her grandmother would say things like, "Don't get too big for your britches. Pride comes before a fall. People like us weren't meant to have too much. When things are going too well, something bad is about to happen." Victoria realized she had inherited a poverty mindset that had been passed down through generations of women in her family. Every time she was about to break through to a new level, that inherited programming would kick in and pull her back down to what felt familiar and safe. She was not just fighting her own doubts, she was fighting the accumulated doubts and limitations of her entire family lineage. But here is what Victoria discovered that changed everything. The same way negative programming gets passed down, positive programming can be passed up. You can be the one who breaks the cycle. You can be the one who stops the negative inheritance and starts a new legacy of winners thinking. You can reprogram not just your own mind, but set a new standard for the generations that come after you. Most people never realize they are walking around with someone else's limitations in their head. They think these negative thoughts are their own thoughts. They think these doubts are their own doubts. They think these fears are their own fears. But the truth is, you inherited most of your mental programming before you were old enough to choose it for yourself. Think about the conversations you have with yourself when you are about to try something new, when you are about to take a risk, when you are about to step out of your comfort zone. Listen to that voice. Whose voice does it sound like? What phrases do you use? What warnings do you give yourself? I guarantee you, if you listen closely, you will recognize that voice. It sounds like someone who raised you, someone who influenced you, someone who programmed you with their own limitations. The reason most people stay stuck in the same patterns year after year is because they are running on inherited programming that was never designed for their success. They are operating with software that was installed by people who never accomplished what they are trying to accomplish. They are trying to build a winner's life with a loser's programming system. But you do not have to stay trapped by someone else's limitations. You do not have to live within the boundaries that were set for other people in other times under other circumstances. You do not have to accept the mental inheritance that was passed down to you. You have the power to install new programming. You have the authority to change the conversation in your head. You have the ability to talk to yourself like the winner you were born to be. The difference between people who break through and people who break down is simple. People who break through learn to recognize when they are operating with inherited limitations, and they choose to install new programming. They understand that the voice in their head does not have to be the final authority on what is possible for their life. They take control of their internal dialogue and reprogram it for the success they deserve. This is not about denying reality or pretending problems do not exist. This is about refusing to let inherited limitations define what is possible for your future. This is about taking responsibility for the programming in your head and upgrading it to match the life you were designed to live. Now, I am going to give you something that will revolutionize your life if you have the discipline to apply it. For the next 7 days, you are going to completely transform the way you talk to yourself. This is not a suggestion. This is not something you try when you feel like it. This is a protocol that you follow with the precision of a surgeon and the commitment of a champion. Day 1 is about eliminating the word can't from your internal vocabulary. Every time you catch yourself saying, I can't do this, or I can't afford that, or I can't figure this out, you are going to immediately replace it with, I'm learning how to do this, or I'm finding a way to afford that, or I'm developing the skills to figure this out. The word can't programs your mind for impossibility. The phrase, I'm learning how, programs your mind for possibility and growth. Winners do not say they cannot do something. Winners say they have not learned how to do it yet. Day 2 focuses on transforming fear-based thoughts into opportunity language. Instead of saying, what if I fail? You say, what if I succeed beyond my wildest expectations? Instead of what if they reject me, you say, what if they say yes and change my life forever? Instead of what if I lose everything, you say, what if this is the breakthrough I've been waiting for? Fear and faith use the same mental process. They both require you to believe in something you cannot see. The difference is fear believes in negative outcomes, while faith believes in positive outcomes. You choose which one gets your mental energy. Day 3 is when you start speaking victory before you see victory. This is where most people struggle because they think they have to see it to believe it, but winners understand you have to believe it to see it. You start declaring what you want as if you already have it. I am successful. I am prosperous. I am healthy. I am loved. I am blessed. I am favored. Not I will be or I hope to be. Or maybe I'll be. You speak in present tense because your subconscious mind only understands now. When you say, I will be successful someday, your subconscious hears not today. When you say, I am successful, Your subconscious begins to align your actions and opportunities with that reality. Day 4 is about programming your subconscious while you sleep. The last thoughts you think before you fall asleep and the first thoughts you think when you wake up have extraordinary power over your subconscious mind. Instead of falling asleep to worry, anxiety, and negative news, you fall asleep speaking success over your life. Tomorrow is going to be an amazing day. Opportunities are coming my way. I am favored. I am blessed. Good things are happening in my life. You program your mind for success while you rest, and you wake up with a success mindset already activated. Let me tell you about Antoine, a young man who took this principle and applied it in the most unlikely circumstances. Antoine was a former gang member who had spent 5 years in prison. When he was released, nobody would hire him. He had a criminal record, no education, no job skills, and no hope. Everyone, including his own family, expected him to end up back in prison within a year. But Antoine understood something about self-talk that changed everything. Every morning, he would stand in front of the mirror in his halfway house and speak to himself like a successful businessman. I am an entrepreneur. I am a leader. I am someone people respect and trust. I provide value to others. I solve problems. I create opportunities. I am not my past. I am my future. He did this every single day for 6 months, even when nothing in his circumstances reflected what he was saying. After 6 months of programming himself for success, Antoine started noticing opportunities that had been there all along, but that his negative mindset had prevented him from seeing. He started a small landscaping business with $50 and a borrowed lawnmower. He talked to himself like a successful business owner before he had any customers. He treated every lawn like he was caring for $1 million property. He spoke to every potential customer like he was already running a successful company. Within 2 years, Antoine had built a landscaping company that employed 12 people and generated over $500,000 in annual revenue. The same man who nobody would hire became an employer. The same man who was expected to fail became a success story. What changed? Antoine learned to talk to himself like a winner before he became a winner. Day 5 through 7 is about establishing this new pattern permanently. Day 5. You focus on using affirmations that actually work, specific, personal, present tense statements that address your exact situation. Day 6. You create your own personal winner's vocabulary, words and phrases that immediately shift your mental state from defeat to victory. Day 7, you establish the new pattern as your default mode of thinking by celebrating every small victory and reinforcing the positive changes you see in your life. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is reprogramming your mind for success using the same principles that have been used by every winner who has ever lived. Your mind believes what you tell it most often and most convincingly. For too long, you have been convincing your mind that you are limited, stuck, and powerless. Now you are going to convince your mind that you are unlimited, growing, and powerful. The choice is yours, but let me warn you about something that will happen after these 7 days. Your old programming is going to fight back. The negative voices that have controlled your thinking for years are not going to give up without a battle. On day 8, day 9, day 10, you're going to wake up and that familiar voice is going to try to convince you to return to your old way of thinking. It will tell you that this positive self-talk is not working, that nothing has changed, that you are fooling yourself, that you should go back to being realistic. This is the moment that separates the winners from the wishers. This is when you find out if you are truly committed to transformation or if you were just playing games with success. When the old programming tries to reassert itself, you do not negotiate with it. You do not debate with it. You do not try to convince it. You simply overpower it with consistent winner's self-talk. You speak louder than the doubt. You speak longer than the fear. You speak stronger than the limitation. The reason most people fail to maintain positive changes in their life is because they think 7 days of new thinking should overcome 20, 30, 40 years of negative programming. They expect their entire mental framework to change overnight. And when it does not happen immediately, they conclude that it does not work and return to their old patterns. But transformation is not an event. Transformation is a process. It is not about perfection. It is about persistence. Every day that you choose to talk to yourself like a winner, you are strengthening the neural pathways in your brain that support success. Every day that you choose winner's language over victim's language, you are rewiring your mind for victory. Every day that you choose faith-based thoughts over fear-based thoughts, you are programming yourself for breakthrough. But it takes time for these new patterns to become your default mode of thinking. Think of it like this. If you wanted to change the course of a massive ship in the ocean, you would not expect it to turn immediately. You would turn the wheel and maintain that new direction consistently until the ship slowly began to change course. Your mind works the same way. You set a new direction with your self-talk, and you maintain that direction consistently until your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. And eventually your results begin to align with your new programming. The compound effect of consistent winner self-talk is extraordinary. In the beginning, you might not see dramatic changes in your external circumstances, but something powerful is happening internally. Your confidence begins to increase. Your energy begins to improve. Your creativity begins to flow. Your problem-solving ability begins to expand. You start to notice opportunities that were always there, but that your negative mindset prevented you from seeing as you continue to talk to yourself like a winner. People begin to respond to you differently. They sense something different in your energy, in your presence, in your conversation. Opportunities begin to present themselves. Resources begin to appear. Connections begin to develop. What seems like coincidence is actually the natural result of a mind that has been programmed for success, attracting the people, circumstances, and opportunities that match that programming. But here is what you must understand. This is not a temporary technique that you use when you feel like it. This is not a motivational exercise that you practice when you need a boost. This is a complete transformation of how you relate to yourself and how you program your mind for the rest of your life. Winner's self-talk must become as natural to you as breathing. It must become as automatic as your heartbeat. It must become as consistent as the rising of the sun. You cannot speak to yourself like a winner on Monday and like a victim on Tuesday and expect winner's results. You cannot program yourself for success in the morning and for failure in the evening and expect breakthrough. You cannot use positive self-talk when things are going well and negative self-talk when things get challenging and expect consistent growth. You must make a decision that from this day forward, you will only speak to yourself in ways that support your success, your growth, your dreams, and your destiny. The most successful people in the world are not necessarily the most talented people in the world. They are not necessarily the most educated people in the world. They are not necessarily the most connected people in the world. But they are the people who have learned to control the conversation in their head. They have learned to speak to themselves like winners. They have learned to program their mind for success and then maintain that programming regardless of their circumstances. You have a choice to make right now. You can continue to live with the mental programming that has produced your current results, or you can take control of your internal dialogue and begin to program yourself for the success you deserve. You can continue to talk to yourself the way you have always talked to yourself, or you can begin today to speak to yourself like the champion you were born to be. The conversation you have with yourself in the next 7 days will determine the direction of your life for the next 7 years. The way you program your mind starting today will determine the results you experience starting tomorrow. You were not born to be average. You were not created to be mediocre. You were not designed to live a life of limitation. You were born to be a winner, but you must learn to talk to yourself like one. Your transformation begins now. Your breakthrough starts today. The winner inside you is ready to emerge, but only you can give that winner a voice. Start talking to yourself like the champion you are, and watch your life transform into the masterpiece it was always meant to be. Let me leave you with this truth that will echo in your mind long after you leave this place. Winners are not born. Winners are made. They are made in the quiet moments when nobody is watching, when nobody is listening, when nobody is cheering. They are made in the conversation they have with themselves when the world tells them they cannot do it, when circumstances say it is impossible, when logic declares it will never happen. You have been given the most powerful tool for transformation that exists on this earth. It is not money, it is not connections, it is not education, it is not talent, it is your ability to control what you say to yourself. This tool has been in your possession your entire life, but perhaps for the first time, you now understand how to use it. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, you have a choice. You can wake up and immediately begin the old programming that has kept you stuck. Or you can wake up and begin the new programming that will set you free. You can speak to yourself like you have always spoken to yourself. Or you can speak to yourself like the winner you were created to be. 7 days from now, you will not be the same person who is sitting here today. 7 days of winner's self-talk will begin a transformation that will impact every area of your life. But it starts with a decision. It starts with a commitment. It starts with you taking control of the most important conversation in your life. The conversation that matters most is not the one you have with others. The conversation that matters most is the one you have with yourself. Make it count. Make it powerful. Make it worthy of the champion you were born to be. Your time is now. Your moment is here. Start talking to yourself like a winner. And winning will become your way of life.